This is the 18-inch Tandem Plus Blue Motion drawer slide. And you can see here that there's a little bit of overlap in the center. Hello again, and welcome back to the vlog. I am back to working on the cabinets. This week I'm going to be building and installing the cabinet drawer. We only have one of them, but I've kind of been putting it off because the drawer slides kind of intimidated me. The drawer box is really simple. It's kind of like building a cabinet box on a smaller scale, but it's really important to have the slides installed properly and level so your drawer slides in and out really smoothly. And I've never done it before, so anything that's new I always get a little bit nervous about. But there's nothing else I can procrastinate with, so it's time to get it done. The first thing I've done is cut these 6-inch braces. The only thing that these will allow me to do is assemble the slide outside of the cabinet box. So I can do all my measurements and, use these pieces to make sure they're aligned with the drawer front before I actually install it in the back of the cabinet, and that just makes it a little bit easier. Yet again, I watched another Bourbon Moth video, and this is how he installed them. I bought the exact same drawer slide he recommends. He explains the installation of this far better than I ever will, so if you are interested in a full tutorial, definitely check that video out. I will link it below. Now I'm going to sand these all down nice and smooth and then drill some pocket holes so I have a way to attach these to the cabinet box. Pocket holes are all drilled. I've also labeled these so I know which corner to put each piece in when I'm installing. And then I've grabbed the drawer slide box here. This is the 18-inch Tandem Plus Blue Motion drawer slide. This was what Bourbon Moth recommended, so I'm totally just copying him. He made it seem so simple, so I figured better to just follow suit. I will open this up, see what's inside, make sure we have everything, and then figure out how to get this installed. Relatively easy, especially because I only have one drawer and they're not two side by side. This little brace piece is going to be installed in the back right corner, touching the top and the right side wall, and then we'll mirror that on the left. This piece here, this little L-shaped bracket, is going to be screwed to this piece. So what you can do, and I'll show you on the left here so you can see it in the camera, is take the brace piece and hold it flush up against the face frame, touching the sidewall, touching the top, and then with your pencil you can mark this bottom corner. Then you take that piece that's marked, we'll do a little bit of measuring, we will screw this piece on like this, touching the lines we drew, and then with this screwed in place, we'll take the whole brace piece and screw it to the back of the cabinet. So I'm going to give it a go and we will see how this works. Now that we have these little L shapes marked, I made a line that was 3/8 of an inch outside of the vertical line. The only reason I know to do this is because that's what the Bourbon Moth tutorial said. So I think it's because the slide itself either sits inside or outside of the bracket we're about to install, so we need that buffer. Now I have my reference points for installing this bracket, so I'm going to rest the bottom on that horizontal line and the outside edge on the vertical line. That just seems way too easy, but I think we did it right. So now what I'm going to do is take these two back pieces and install them in the back corners, again pushing them up against the top and the outside walls, and then I will screw them in. I forgot I actually didn't need pocket holes on these, so I can literally just drop a screw right into the back of the cabinet, because if you remember back in like episode 1 when we built this cabinet box, we actually have brace pieces along the back side of the cabinet, so we have something to screw into. Okay, I ended up installing the full slide because it was a little tricky to film inside of this dark and tiny cabinet. So the first thing I did was I installed the back brace, which we installed that bracket on. So I pushed it up against the side and the top and screwed it into the back. Then I took these side pieces, which again, didn't need the pocket holes for, totally forgot, and screwed it into the side. So I had something that was flush with the face frame that I could screw the slide into. This side I didn't need the pocket holes for, I just screwed it right through the side of the cabinet. Once I had this side piece installed, then I just took the slide and I latched it into the bracket in the back and then leveled it out and screwed it into the side piece here. I did the same thing on this side, and the only mistake I made here was that I didn't think I needed the pocket holes. I screwed through the side of this and poked a hole through the other side of the cabinet, so I will need to fix that on the other side, but I was able to use the pocket hole to screw it into the countertop and to the inside of the face frame here. So now, because we've got both slides in, we can pull them out, and I just have this piece of wood here that I will lay across as a fake drawer, and I can take my level, and it's not perfect, but it's pretty darn close. Now that we have the slides installed, I can go ahead and work on the drawer box tomorrow. There might be a few small adjustments we need to make to really ensure that the drawer is perfectly level once it's in there, but for now, this at least gives us something to measure against so we can build the box. I'm going to pause for tonight and go eat dinner with Matt and my brother, and we will pick back up tomorrow. Happy Thursday. I'm going to pivot just a little bit before we get back to building the drawer box, because my goal for this week is to dry fit everything. So drawer box, all of the doors, get the hinges installed, make sure everything installs properly before we get to paint and actually wrapping up the doors. So I actually just sanded all of the glass door frames so we can rabbet out a groove to drop the glass fronts into. My brother and Matt actually helped me set up the router table last night, so we've got everything set to the right height, and now all I need to do is run each of the inside edges of the cabinet door frames along the router bit to rabbet out that little groove. Nice lip edge that we can drop the glass into, and then I have glass clips that I will install to apply pressure to the glass so it doesn't slip out when we open and close the doors. This little groove we just made is 1/4 of an inch deep. The glass I'm going to put in is 1/8 of an inch deep, so our glass clips will sink in about 1/8 of an inch, and I'll tighten them down so they apply pretty good pressure. Because the router bit is round, we have rounded corners. Now that won't work with our glass because when we order that, the corners are going to be 90 degrees. So we need to take a chisel and chisel this out to make it 90 degrees so the glass actually fits. Before I do that, I need to sharpen the chisels, because if you don't have sharp chisels, you're just gonna gouge the wood. If we have nice sharp chisels, it should kind of cut through the wood like butter, so we can square those off really easily. Now I will go ahead and do the same thing to the other 3 glass door frames. All of the doors now have this routed groove. The longer doors had a few little areas right in the middle where the router bit slipped, but I can just wood fill that and sand it down, so I'm not too worried. For my first time using the router, I'd say this is pretty darn good, so I'm happy with the results. And now we'll just have to figure out how to chisel out these corners so we can make room for the glass. Now what I'm going to do is circle back to the drawer box. I will work on the corners of the grooves on the cabinet door frames later on, but I really want to make sure that we can get this drawer box installed and that the slides function properly, because that has to be installed before I can actually put the drawer front on. And my goal for this week is to dry fit all of the doors and drawer fronts with the hinges installed to make sure I didn't make any incorrect measurements. So we are bouncing between things, but I do have a method to my madness. I rewatched the Bourbon Moth cabinet drawer making video again, and I took some notes here. So I basically marked down the sizes I need for the 4 sides of the drawer box and then the panel that will create the bottom of the drawer. So I'm going to go ahead and cut all of those. It's basically like building a cabinet box, which we did in like episode 1 or 2, which is crazy. I don't even know what episode we're on anymore. Maybe 11? Oh god. Sorry guys, this is dragging out, but it is what it is, okay? This is the reality. So I will cut all of the pieces to size, and then I will cut the groove in them that we can fit the panel into and get that assembled, and then we will go inside and see if it fits. I did it! We officially have a drawer box. That was really fun to make. It's really just a mini cabinet box, and because I've built so many cabinet boxes at this point, I felt really confident with this. Okay, now I have to install these little clips on the bottom of the drawer, so when I flip it over and set it on the slides, it actually clips into the slide. That's what keeps it in place, so it doesn't just yank off the slides when you open the drawer. So there's 2 screw holes right here, so I'm going to screw this in on the right side and do the same thing on the left side, and then we are going to attempt to put it on the slides and see if it works. Very exciting. We have a drawer installed. It's a little hard to open because I don't have a drawer front, but it slides in and out, and it has slow close, which is great. The only problem is that for whatever reason, the slides are just a hair too long. So when I take the drawer front that I cut, which is 3/4 of an inch thick, and insert it into this slot, it protrudes about 1/4 of an inch. So what I need to do, so the drawer front is actually flush, is plane this down so that it's a 1/2 inch thick instead of 3/4 inch thick. I grabbed a 1/2 inch piece of plywood just to check and make sure that that would actually make it flush. And when I put it up against this, it is nearly flush, which is close enough for me. So I have a friend who I think has a planer, if I remember correctly. So I'm going to reach out to him and see if I can just take this piece over and plane it down to a 1/2 inch, and that would solve our problem. I guess I should have gotten shorter slides. I got the 18-inch deep ones, and the cabinet from the inside of the face frame to the back is like 19.5 inches. So I thought the 18-inch would be fine, but once you add all of the hardware and that 3/4 inch block in the back, it must have been just too much that the drawer started to stick out a little too far. But functionally, the drawer works, and we have a way to fix the drawer front, so I'm gonna call this a win. Today has been a whirlwind day already. We've made a lot of behind the scenes progress, starting with the drawer front. So yesterday when I dry fit it, it was just a little bit too thick. I was able to stop by my friend Mike's this morning and have him help me plane this down. So this was the drawer front. It was 3/4 of an inch thick. It is now 1/2 inch thick. So when we put it up against the drawer box we built yesterday, it's now flush with the face frame. So that's good to go. While I was at Mike's, I mentioned that our chisels were really dull and I needed to chisel the corners out of the grooves that we cut for the glass. And he mentioned he had sharpening stones. So he let us borrow those, and my brother helped out big time today and sharpened the chisels and chiseled all of the corners out of the glass cabinet door frames. So these are ready to go now, which is awesome. All I need to do is sand all of the inside edges now so that it's nice and smooth for the glass to sit in, and make sure there's no like sawdust trapped in the corners. But you can see now we have these beautiful 90-degree corners that the glass will actually fit into. So now that all of that is good to go, the next step is dry fitting the doors. Now I'm 100% sure we are going to have to make some adjustments, potentially sand a little bit of the doors to make them fit properly. So this is going to be tedious, but I want to do this before I paint so that once we paint, all we need to do is screw the hinges in and we can call it done. Now, before I started filming, I was just loosely placing the doors in place to make sure they fit and I didn't mess anything up, and surprise, surprise, I did mess something up, unfortunately. So the 2 panel doors that are going to be on the bottom cabinet are actually 1 inch short width-wise. Totally did not check my measurements when I was cutting. I cut the rails 1 inch short and I assembled the whole door, which is beautiful by the way, and now there's a big gap in the middle. So I'm going to need to rebuild these. I'll figure out another use for these. Maybe I'll paint them and make them into chalkboards or something. So that's a big bummer, but it's okay. Mistakes happen, and that was totally my bad. I should have measured twice and cut once, but I didn't. So we won't be able to do those, but I can dry fit all of the glass cabinet door frames and make some adjustments to make sure those fit properly. I will work on building new doors for the bottom cabinet like later this weekend or next week, but thankfully those ones are actually easier to build, so it's not a big deal. I just have to cut some more wood. The hinges I have decided to use are these exposed hinges. So you will actually see this little piece of hardware when the doors are closed on the outside edges. They're also non-mortise hinges, which means we don't have to like mortise out a little notch to set the hinge in. That type of hinge you would see on like the doors in your house or on like higher end cabinets, but it's a little bit of a process and I'm not totally confident in doing that yet. I also like that this is a little bit more of a traditional look, so it kind of makes the room feel a little less modern, and that's the overall vibe I'm going for. I could not find brass hinges, so I'm actually going to use rub and buff, which is like a paint essentially, to change the color of these before we do the final install. But just for dry fitting, I'm gonna leave them as is, and I will show you how I change the color in another vlog. I'm going to start with this left door on the lower portion of the upper cabinet because it seems to be the most square, so this should require minimal adjustments. This door that goes next to it is like a tiny bit off of square, so I'll have to kind of like sand a little bit of one of the edges to make sure it fits and the doors can close. So I'm going to screw the hinges onto the door first, and then I will figure out how to screw that into the face frame. One of the things that's really important when we install these is the spacing. So I've seen in a few different videos that people use playing cards to kind of like prop things up and make sure the spacing is equal all around. Now, I'm quite sure that my spacing is not going to be perfect all around just because my doors aren't like perfectly square. They're close, but it's not like dead on. But this will at least get me close enough and help me prop the door up so it's not going to rub on the desktop surface when it opens and closes. I might have to shave off a hair on the bottom, but we will see. First, I'm going to start here and see how close we are. So I have 3 cards under each of these sides. It looks like it's off just a hair. So what I will probably do is sand just a little bit on the bottom of this corner and a little bit on that top corner to make it visually appear square. I'm going to put just 1 screw in each of the hinges on the side of the face frame just to hold it in place so I can actually open it. And then once we get it painted and actually go ahead and install, we can do micro adjustments because the screw hole is like an oval shape. So you can put the screw in and then just like slightly shift the hinge up or down. So that's helpful when you're doing like the final install. Now I'm going to do the same thing on the other door that will live on the right side. So we'll get the hinges installed on the door and then we will bring it up here to see if it fits or if we need to shave anything down. So I've got the hinges installed with 1 screw in each side. So I don't have all the screws in, but it's enough to hold them for now. And you can see here that there's a little bit of overlap in the center. So I've made notes on all of the edges that are a little bit off and just noted like how much I need to shave and where I need to shave. I need to cut about a 1/16 of an inch off of each vertical side so we have a nice even gap in the middle. And then like this top edge for some reason is just like a little bit high, so I'm going to have to gradually shave that off. So this means that these will be not perfectly even, but it's such a subtle amount that I don't think it's going to matter. And quite frankly, that's what handmade is all about. Like, I'm not a professional cabinet maker, so we're going to make do with what we have. It will not bother me at all because the cabinet doors are going to be painted the same color as this, so it's not like going to stand out to the eye. But we'll shave everything down and pop them back on, and then we'll kind of see if it's problematic or not a really big deal. Before I go ahead and take these off and start shaving them, I'm going to put the other 2 doors up and do the same thing, just so we can bring everything out to the barn together and do all of our fine tuning at the same time. That wasn't the most tedious task ever, but the doors are fit. I had a lot of sanding to do back and forth to the barn to get them as close to perfect as I could get them. They're definitely not perfect, and I know I bring that up a lot, but I'm a perfectionist, so it's a really hard thing for me to like let it go when you put so much time and effort and money into something. But, you know, it's a learning process, and I'm learning to move on and like be okay with good enough. Because I built this. I freaking built this. That is so cool. And it's definitely not going to be perfect because I'm learning as I go. So it's my perfect, and that's good for me. But enough of that. I will flip the camera and show you what they look like and share with you the next steps. So the hinges are about 2.5 inches, and I just put 2 on each door. So obviously because this is a taller door, they're more spread out, and then this is a shorter door. They're both about 3 inches from the bottom and top edges. So if I need to, I could always add another hinge in the middle here, but I think it'll be okay. We will see how it is once I get the glass ordered and installed. But they open smoothly. They've got a nice little gap in the middle so they don't hit each other. I only have a couple of screws in, so you know, I still have to take these off and sand them, but once I put them back on, I'll add all the extra screws so they're super secure. But it looks pretty darn good. I'm very happy with it. Spent a lot of time on them, but you know, it's not bad. It's really not bad. You know, there's some little imperfections here, but I just feel like the angle that you look at these, you just don't see some of those edges like line to line. So it really is not as big of a deal as I made it out to be in my head. I just have the drawer front sitting in here so that I could like visualize it. I don't have it attached. I still have to sand it and paint it, of course. And then I do need to rebuild these panel doors because they are about 1 inch short on width on both sides. Aside from having to build those 2 new doors, the next things I need to do are paint the hinges. So I'm going to paint them like a unlacquered brass color so they match the hardware we're going to add. I need to take all the doors back off, sand them, prime them, and paint them. And then we will either put them back up and wait for the glass, or I'll just wait until I have the glass, install that, and then put the doors up and call it done. The glass will take anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks, so I mean, it doesn't matter if we put the doors up, but I'm just trying to check things off my list. So we'll play it by ear. I also need to paint the walls in here. I have decided on a color. It's this little swatch over here. It's just a bright creamy white. The color is called Pointing by Farrow & Ball. I have it color matched in Benjamin Moore, so I'm hoping to get to that over the next week as well. So lots to come. We will catch up on all of that in the next episode. I'm just gonna kind of play it by ear to see how quickly we can get the glass and how quickly I can get everything painted. The crown molding I ordered is also actually ready for pickup, so I'm going to pick that up this weekend and figure out how to get it installed. We still have the issue of the ceiling being like 1.5 inches off of level from left to right, so I've been racking my brain trying to figure out how to solve for that because the gap is definitely not caulkable. It's much larger than that, so I need to do some creative thinking. All like little things now. I feel so much better getting past this door situation because I knew there was going to be a lot of sanding and finessing, and as frustrating as it was, I'm very happy with how it all came together. So it pays to be persistent. I'm going to wrap this episode up here. We will catch up again in the next office episode with a lot of the updates I just mentioned and maybe close to being finished. I don't know. Guys, it's been almost 6 months. This is insane. But we are rounding the corner to the finish line. I can see it in the distance. I see the flags and just all the people cheering. But we're almost there. I will be bouncing back and forth between office episodes and vlogging because I've got Christmas decor and all that fun stuff to start filming and sharing with you. So bear with me, but the end is near, I promise. Thank you so much for watching this week. If you liked the video, make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe for future updates, and I will catch up with you again in the next vlog.